or one of the phrases I remember from our men's group was, when I pray, coincidences happen, and when I don't, they don't. So those things could be viewed as coincidence by someone, but I think we're all part of a greater plan. Normal Monday was the final session of one of David's dad groups that I've really come to know and enjoy. And kind of the way we wrap up the session, the last session of the group, is to put hands on each other and do some more intense praying than we normally would. So everybody gets a few minutes to literally put hands on each other and talk about things, and we're asked to bless and protect each other's families and help us be good leaders and things like that. And coincidentally, one of the things that David said that night was he prayed for me to have more opportunities to share kind of my faith that I'd gotten so comfortable doing in the group, but didn't necessarily do a very good job of in my daily life with my coworkers, my neighbors, and things like that. Just never had the comfort level to do, and ended up through the events later that evening having a great opportunity to do that. So when I got home, everybody was asleep in the house, and I joked that typically if I've just spent an hour and a half with David, I do a much better job praying. So I went to each of my children's bedrooms, I kissed them on the head, said a prayer for each of them individually, came in, kissed my wife, and I normally do a pretty good job of kind of getting in bed and praying to myself, or to God rather, silently, but got down on my knees that night against the bed and just said, Lord, please keep my family safe, happy, and healthy. That's a phrase I've used a lot recently. I'll use it on the way to school with my kids. And kind of a little setup of my house. The last thing I did, I was going to go move my wife's car. So we have kind of a horseshoe driveway that my wife had parked the car kind of at the top of the horseshoe right in front of our front door, which she does from time to time, not every day, but if she's unloading groceries and getting the kids in, she'll leave the car there because it's more convenient than kind of parking to the side of the house. So I'm very particular for whatever reason about getting the car back to the side of the house. So typically when she does leave it there, I will move it. And so I got home from work that day, again, the Monday when I was meeting David and the guys, and I said, well, I'll move the car. And I said, no, I'm going to meet David. I'll move it when I get home. My wife also had a couple opportunities to move the car. My daughter was supposed to go to gymnastics or ballet that day, I can't remember, but she would have then moved it. But when I got back from the men's group, after I prayed and all that, the last thing I went to do was to go move my wife's car. And I got the key, I went to the door, and we have a little glass portion in the top of the door that I just looked out and I said, why am I so particular about moving the car? I can just move that tomorrow, it's no big deal. So I did the lock mechanism from the keys and went and got in bed. And an hour later, kind of an amazing event happened. So I was drifting off to sleep and heard a really, really jarring and horrific noise. Was so disoriented, had no idea what was going on, went to the front door and looked out, and my wife's car was gone. And in that moment, I didn't know if it had been stolen, if something had happened, and I saw a lot of tree debris and a tire. And so I was very confused, but again, still so just jolted and disoriented. I couldn't put anything together. So I went back to our bedroom, looked out the window, and we saw another car. And someone was getting out of the passenger side and running down the street. Somebody was falling literally out of the driver's side and kind of writhing in pain. And so then it all kind of clicked. It's like, oh my goodness, there's been a terrible accident outside. So we called 911, waited for the help to get there. And, once everybody was out there and the scene was kind of dying down, was talking to some people on the scene and just could not believe what had happened. But when we pieced things together, there was some erratic driving somewhere, and a policeman was going to pull the car over. And as soon as he hit his blue lights, the car took off, trying to get away. And ultimately, there's a slight bend in our street where they hit a neighbor's recycling bin, kind of lost control, and went right into the back of my wife's car, which is no small car. It's close to a 6,000-pound Chevy Suburban, and moved it probably 20 to 30 yards away. And we're just so grateful that the car was there, because some people on the scene, can't remember if it was a fireman or policeman, somebody said, wow, what a miracle that car was there. Because the most likely path, if that car wasn't there, was either through those two windows or into that house right there. And the two windows that he mentioned were our master bedroom, where we were sleeping, and the house next to us, I believe, had our neighbor asleep on the couch in the living room. So could have been a horrible, horrible accident. Not that it wasn't in its own right, but it just could have been so much worse. And I really, truly believe that God, through those series of events, kept our house, our children, and us protected, kept our neighbors protected. And even though some people at the scene who estimated kind of offhand said, gosh, the car may have been going triple digits, could have been going 100 miles an hour, somebody said, there's no way the person driving that car lived. And while we don't have a lot of details because of privacy, my understanding is that they did live and that they're going to be okay. And I just hope that, it's been as good of an experience overall, a life-changing one for them as it's been for us. And I didn't realize that later that night I would be given the opportunity to share my faith, doing it obviously in the church in a variety of different ways. But I told David, I've told so many neighbors about God, so many insurance adjusters, so many car salespeople, just everybody I could talk to. I was saying just what a miracle it was, just like the person at the scene said. And I truly believe that. And to me, that really drove home the point that God is listening. God does answer prayers more directly and in a different way than I would have hoped to be given that opportunity. But feel so blessed and so lucky, and just hope that the story can inspire others, both that were involved at the scene, that I've talked to, and that others have told me they've shared. So it's been amazing.